Hello everyone, Heidi here from Rain Country. Glad to see y'all popping in. Sorry y'all, but I'm just feeling a little bit stiff this morning. I can't seem to move my arm. But at least my skin looks flawless. Wah, wah, wah. Boop. Hello everyone, popping in early again, of course. So by the way, I've shown this before, but several years ago, one of my followers made this for me. So what she did was she took this old a Bratz doll that she picked up secondhand, took all of the makeup off of her face and then repainted her face so she, just looks a lot nicer. And she did all that, repainted that by hand. She made little boots for her and this little patchwork skirt and apron and fixed her hair. I used to do something more like this with my hair quite a bit where I'd twist it up. I tell you what, it's such a pain with all these curls and wiry gray hairs that want to go everywhere. Here's my disclaimer. I know I'm probably forgetting a billion things, but I wanted to talk about upcycling, recycling, frugality, and just give you some examples. I'll start off with talking about some specific things that I do. And I made sure that I put this quilt on my chair. So this quilt, you've heard me or seen me talk about this particular one before. This is the one I made for my freezer. It's my freezer quilt. So why did I make a freezer quilt? Well, I made a freezer quilt to, first of all, even whether our freezer's running off of solar power or public power, keeping a quilt over your freezer is going to help conserve energy. It's going to help hold the cold in. And it looks nice. This one is made out of recycled jeans and then just a bunch of flannel I had laying around. I wanted to make sure it looked really nice though, because of where the freezer sits. It's actually by our back door, but that's the door everybody comes in. Hardly anyone comes to the front. If somebody comes and knocks on the front door, that means they're a stranger. So yeah, our big old chest freezer is right by that, and then the back is lined with, well, a flat sheet. It was a sheet set I bought specifically for making skirts, quilts, and more, and then made the backing and border out of that. So that was recycled. It was brand new, but I got a good deal on it. So that's the other thing is I'll stock up on stuff like that, flannel sheets and whatnot, if I see a good deal on them, because flannel sheets are great, especially the bigger ones, like you get king size, because you can use them for quilt backs. It's cheaper to do it that way than buying by the yard, and you can be a little more guaranteed you're going to get a width that you don't have to have a seam down the middle of the back or something like that. And then this is pretty tattered, but I made myself two purses, two different colors. This is one I'm not currently using. I switch them out every 6 months and then throw it in the wash. So it's just kind of a rag style purse made with recycled pieces of denim and just some, like this is all denim except for the green. I utilize the pockets because they look cute, but that gives me a place to put some lip balm. And then I always make sure I use one of the belt loops, and I'll hang my keys from here. So I brought this one in because I figured it'd be easier to show since it's not the one I'm currently using. And then on the inside, I do the same thing. I use a back pocket on each side of the inside so I can stick stuff in there. There's one idea. I've recycled the pockets off of jeans to put on skirts just for a cute factor or to actually use as a pocket. Oh, and by the way, I have a video series on frugality and upcycling that I have linked to in the description box down below if you'd like to go check out my videos in there, and where I broke down different things like upcycling denim, upcycling old t-shirts, upcycling cotton sheets, upcycling plastic grocery bags, bottles and jars, so on and so forth. But the one on the jeans I forgot to mention was when our kids were young, They were still kids. And we got the GMC that we have now. So we got that in, it was a 2002. We got it in 2002. And so we ended up buying just a cheap little DVD player. And the DVD part was a little, I think it was separate from the screen itself. And since the way it was set up, what I did was I took some old jeans and cut them in such a way and made basically a holder for the video screen. You know, obviously cut a hole in the front where the screen itself was. So then I just had that so I could just sit that in there, and then made straps where it could hook over the front seat. So when the kids were sitting in the back, that screen would be kind of suspended between the two, you know, captain's type seats in the front of the truck. And so they would both have equal view of the video screen, because otherwise you had to hang it over the back of one of the seats, and then somebody would have to be leaning over. So I made sure it was in the center. So that was kind of a fun way. And it was a sturdy fabric because it was made out of denim. Or do you leave it on in winter as well? Okay, I'm sorry. What was this? I started using one on mine. So, oh, the freezer. Yeah, I just leave it on all the time. Because here was the other thing, Sally. So going back to the quilt thing, is that if the power goes out, well, the quilt's already there. So if you lose power, it doesn't matter if it's summer or winter, you lose power, and that quilt's going to help conserve, you know, the cold that's in there, will help insulate it. That's the word I'm looking for. The first several I'm talking about fabrics, but that's not the only thing I'm going to talk about. So the next category, I have flannel and cotton. So it can be cotton flannel or just plain cotton, like a regular cotton sheets kind of fabric. Talking about a quilt like this, I've actually, years ago, one of my first denim quilts I made, it was denim and flannel, but I made it using Patrick's old jeans and his old flannel shirts where, you know, they were starting to fall apart, getting holes in them or whatever, and then cut those up. But the great thing about flannels, there's so many uses for flannel, because you can use them as a replacement, just make them rags out of them and use them as paper towel replacement. I'm one that tends to use old t-shirts, like this old t-shirt here, for cleaning up messes and stuff. So when Patrick's shirts get old and stained and have holes in them, which tends to happen a lot, I just cut them up and I use them as rags for whatever. They make good hankies. They're not pretty, but they make good hankies, which is why I always keep one handy just in case. Make good burp rags for babies. But the same thing can be said with flannel. So whether it be recycled flannel sheets, recycled, you know, old flannel shirts, any flannel pajamas, else down. I have a video on this too, where I've taken some flannel and made insoles for some shoes that were just a little, they didn't have enough cushion in them. And the shoes were just a little big because I bought them years ago. They were the Converse ones, the low top ones. And they were so cute, and they had them at the local store, and I've had them for a long, long time, but they had little patches on them. They were just so me. And when they went on sale, I'm like, I got to get these, but they only had them in adult sizes, where I typically wear kids shoes. So sometimes the smallest adult size shoes are a little big, but I had to have those shoes because they were so me. So what I did then was I made myself my own insoles to add a little thickness to the shoe, as well as a little bit of padding. Because if you've never worn the Converse shoes, they have no padding. They're like, just because they're supposed to be basketball shoes. So I actually made some out of, you know, a few layers of flannel. So it would be a little, if I had to do it again though, I'd probably use like maybe a bamboo fleece as well to give it a little more padding, a little more squishiness. But I've used flannel to make, I know there's guys in here, so sorry, but to make feminine napkins. I've used flannel to make toilet paper replacement, and that's all I use. And I love it. It's like I've said before, it's more luxurious than toilet paper, and washing them in their own load by themselves, hot water wash, is a breeze. They clean up very, very easily. Then also, if you're looking at 100% cotton sheets or any natural fabric, linen, anything like that. Makes great dehydrator rack covers for catching all, especially when you're doing herbs. And they're just like thyme is one of the worst ones. As they dry, you might think, oh, it's all holding together. Calendula flowers are another one that, you put them on there whole, but when you dehydrate them, they get, as they dry, they just start the petals start falling off and fall through your rack. So having the fabric on there, it actually helps speed up the dehydrating time, I've noticed. But you want a good natural breathable fabric. So I even switched to linen. So you don't want any polyester because you don't want any of that plastic getting in your food, but also it's going to prevent good airflow if it has any kind of unnatural fabric. That's why you want to go with the natural. So either cotton or linen or, anything like that. So wool socks. So if you have wool socks where you finally wore out the bottom of them, you don't feel like darning them, you've decided, like my Darn Tough socks, took forever to finally get any holes whatsoever. But by then the whole bottom of the sock all the way around was just getting really thin. But usually the top of your sock it's not going to get the same kind of wear. So you can cut the top of your wool socks off and use those to make quilts or anything else you want. So I actually have a quilt. I was going to bring that in here too, that I made years ago out of tops from old socks that had holes worn in them. And I could have darned them. I think they were probably in good enough shape. I could have darned them, but I decided not to. I just saved them up and then made a quilt. I love that. It's like a lap quilt, and I love that in the wintertime. Oh, and there's also jar covers for any of these natural fabrics. So you can just cut a square. If it's something that tends to fray really bad, usually I just rip it and just, linen is easier to cut than rip, but it can be ripped. But they're great for jar covers for making vinegars, or if it's a cute fabric and you want to hem it out and make those cute little rounded jar covers with the elastic, you can do that too. When I first started doing the vinegars, I would just rip squares. I didn't care how they looked. But now, since I'm always taking pictures of and it's always on my counter, I decided I want them to look cute. So I think that's all the fabrics mostly, and that's just a few ideas. There's so much more. Now, then you have things like kitchen scraps. So we know you can take like your peels from your onions and your tops from your celery and your carrots and whatever, and you can, make them into a veggie broth, or even throw them in with the bones if you're making a bone broth and get a veggie bone broth. But there's other things too besides composting, obviously composting, but I'm thinking specifically of things like me and the eggshells that I try to be in the habit of every day. I don't always remember, but every day taking a teaspoon or more of cleaned ground eggshells that I got from my own chickens. And it makes a great mineral supplement. I looked it up again to make sure I had the minerals right, because I knew they had calcium and magnesium, which you should never take calcium without magnesium. Well, they're already combined. Well, guess what other minerals should be combined or can be combined with calcium? Because it's going to balance things out better in the body so you don't end up with hypercalcification. Well, phosphorus and potassium are a couple others. Well, it has all four of those: calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium. So you're getting all of that. It's great. Oh, and the other things with eggshells is that you can use them in your garden. You're adding minerals to your garden, especially really good for your tomatoes. When you go to plant your tomatoes in the ground, you dig your hole, you sprinkle a few eggshells down in there, and then put your tomatoes in there. Some people will even use the half of an eggshell and not powdered up, and then plant stuff in that. Use those as starters, little starter pots. And then you just plant the whole thing in there. The eggshell eventually is going to break down. I would not be certain of it breaking down enough to let the roots spread out. So I personally wouldn't do it that way, but maybe they crush it up before they put it in the ground. I have no idea because I've never done that. But and then some people will use the eggshells on top of around their plants, but on top of their soil, eggshells that are crushed, not powdered. And then that for some people will work as a good slug deterrent because the slugs don't want to go over the sharp edges of the eggshells. Of course, you can use, more kitchen scraps, obviously bones for making, the bones from whatever it is for making a broth, a bone broth. Coffee grounds. Coffee grounds are also great for compost. Since I grow a lot of berries in pots on my front and back decks, what I do is I keep this little pot specifically for collecting my coffee grounds in on the kitchen. So it looks nice. It's got a lid. And then when it gets full, I just walk out on one of the decks and I'll take those out and put them in the different strawberry pots. It's mostly strawberries, but I got a couple of blueberries left on the deck because that's going to add nitrogen to the soil, and your berries, they love anything that loves acidic soil. You can put it around your rhubarb. You can throw it where you plant your potatoes. They're going to like those coffee grounds.
Somebody had a special request.
Or you can use that chair. A special, to see Coty Biscotti?
Yeah.
Coty Biscotti.
RCH mascot.
I never have a scarf on him anymore because every time Patrick takes them out to the property, he's digging under them trees and the roots and the shrubs and the blackberry bushes, and then he gets the scarf caught, and then it stays behind. So I kind of gave up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't like putting collars on him for that same reason. He's always getting hung up and stuff. And then the next one was bottles and jars, obviously. So I only brought in one, but we've got, saving good bottles and jars from whatever product that you might buy that has like good tight fitting lids. And one of the ones I save, are you leaving? Or are you coming back?
Oh, I was going to come back.
Okay, good. Are the I got the Chosen Foods avocado oil or almond oil. I get both, mostly the avocado oil. Because their bottles are dark and because they're square, I love storing my homemade wines in them. This is actually I should have put the year on there. This is from a few years ago. This is one of my better ones, the blackberry wine. You got to clean them out real good, obviously. But one of the reasons I like those is not only are they dark, they got a good tight fitting lid with a little silicone on the inside. So it's gonna keep it airtight. That's important when you're storing your wines. I'd rather do that than use corks, but it keeps them quite well. I've had some that were there's a recycled green olive jar. Thank you, Patrick.
Costco special.
I had that sitting out because I'm going to make grits when I'm done.
These little quarter turn, eighth inch turn.
Lug lid.
These lids here, they have a little rubber deal on the top of them. You put that on there and you can vacuum seal it.
Yep. So yeah, thank you. I was actually going to mention that. So using the chamber that Patrick makes, that's how I seal those. This one's not sealed because this is what I'm working through. It's just in the kitchen. This is the Azure Standard Grits Organic. Love them so much. But so I recycle. We don't eat a lot of green olives, but we do like green olives. So every now and then we might work through a jar of green olives, and then I'll wash it up really good and save it. And if you're worried about the smell, you take the lid after you wash it really good. I mean, everybody's got their own little tricks, but one of the things I found works best, I just set this on the kitchen windowsill, even in the windowsill that doesn't get direct sun because it faces the north. And just sitting there, getting even just the residual light and the open air, leave it there for several days, and that will help. But if you can set it in the direct sun, that would be better yet, because the sun will kill the odor. I love the way sun will take out stains and odors. But yeah, so if you're interested in the vacuum chamber that Patrick makes, I have videos on it on my channel. And I also, you can email me at raincountryhomestead@gmail.com, and I can shoot you out a product list with I use the brake bleeder with it. And so I can vacuum seal any jar that's not a regular mason. Well, you can vacuum seal any jar that will fit in there, even if it's a mason jar. But usually I just use the food saver tops for the mason jars, but the chamber the vacuum chamber for sealing the jars like this that don't have the standard, like either the regular
any
one.
size,
or-
any size jar up to a quart.
Yeah. That that will fit in there. So, yeah, you can just email me at raincountryhomestead@gmail.com if I didn't say all that. And I will shoot you out the product list. Also has seeds, skin cream, and more in there. And then what are a few other things? Oh, I also like using these same jars for now. Those are my favorite ones for making tinctures in. Oh, and then also like I bought at a garage sale years ago, I found some old swing top beer bottles. They're great for storing tinctures in as well. I'll put the tinctures in those, the ones that we're working through, like the pain. I have only 3 or 4 of those. And because they're dark and because they're swing top, you know, and then they have the smaller spout, they're really easy and nice to use for things like that. You know, and then you can just pour a little bit out and as much as you need. Oil infusions, I use recycled jars or even canning jars sometimes too for oil infusions, just whatever. I mean, there's so many things you can use. You can just store food in your fridge in them. You know, it doesn't have to be something liquid, or you don't have to vacuum seal. Just use them for whatever. But especially, like, I'm going to come back to the dark bottles, especially something like this. Vinegar is another good thing you can use for storing those in, because they're going to be airtight. Because you don't, once your vinegar is done and you go bottle or jar it up, you don't want it getting any air in there. Or it's just like with the wine, you don't want it getting air in there because it's going to turn the wine to vinegar. But if it's vinegar and the air is still getting in there, it's going to just turn it to nasty water, is what it does. So he's going to talk about buckets. Buckets, oh fun, talking about buckets.
Only for a minute. She
Excuse me.
buys coconut oil and different things in these little handy buckets. And we keep all these buckets for putting paint in when you're painting, store, you know, breaking down. Looks like if you buy grain in bulk or whatever like that, you can put them in these buckets, you know, to reuse them. And
I like to keep like, since I have big, like huge buckets, like 7-gallon, 10-gallon buckets for my flowers and my oats and whatnot. I'll recycle these to keep the stuff in the kitchen in my lower cabinet. So, you know, it's a lot in there, but it's not a big massive bucket, you know. And so I just, when those get empty, I'll just refill them. Also use them for chicken water.
Oh yeah. And chicken feed, you know.
Yep.
On the farm, these things are super handy.
Yeah.
Put fasteners in them. If you buy fasteners in bulk, you can, you know, have a smaller bucket for putting fasteners and screws and nails and all kinds of different things on there. And on the subject of that, you know, if you're interested in any guy stuff, there's, you know, every time I take something to the dump or whatever like that, I take usable nuts and bolts off of the different things that I might throw away. If I see that they're useful, if I can reuse them, I don't try to save everything, but if the bolts and nuts and different things like that look like they're handy, that they can be used on another project, I'm always resourcing my nuts and bolts bin that has recycled bolts and nuts in it, washers and such.
It's like taking buttons off of old shirts.
That's exactly right. My mom, she had like 2 cookie tins that were about 2 or 3 inches tall by 10, 11, 12 inches in diameter, little cookie tins. She had those things plumb full of buttons, and she had another one for zippers. She'd take the zippers out of things and recycle zippers.
And I mentioned the sheets. That's one of the things, like if you're recycling sheets, or even if you're buying brand new sheets because it's cheaper than buying fabric by the yard, depending on what you're getting. Don't forget to take the elastic out of the fitted sheet. I've got a lot of good chunks of elastic out of some fitted sheets, even ones I found at a garage sale. I'm like, man, this is really nice elastic in here. And that was the elastic I was using to make the jar covers. You know, those little cute little jar covers, which I have a video on. They're really, really simple. And it's just a way to make things look cute. Or if you're going to gift a jar of something to someone, you can put that on there. like maybe you're making some elderberry syrup and you're wanting to give it away as gifts, you can, make a little jar covers and put them over there. So using your scrap elastic and your scrap fabrics. I don't know if you're coming back with something else. You are, aren't
Something
you?
else, yeah.
More stuff.
So
More
I think
things and more stuff.
I think we've mentioned bed rails before, but incidentally, just the other day, my wood chipper, when I was up on the property chipping, which is another recyclable thing, instead of just burning the brush and the branches, I'm chipping it all, and I will turn that into mulch. But
Yay.
incidentally, the other day, this is a weak point on the chipper. These are little L brackets to hold down the feed drum. It's a self-feeding chipper, so that these are ones I replaced, but these go on each side of that feed drum, and they're on two big springs that hold pressure down on the feed roller that sucks in the branches and the wood. It's an 8-inch chipper. Well, you can see I made these a little bit larger. Didn't get that hole quite centered. Shame on me, Pat. But anyway, the bracket on the old one broke, and this one here is bent. So I made these a little bit wider out of bed rails. So when this broke on the other side, I took the old eye bolt and just bent it over, because I'm an hour away from town, every hour away from anything. And so I just bent this over. The old one, I bent it over and reattached it, and it lasted me several more days. And just yesterday it broke on me. So I just came home and made some new brackets for that. This particular eye bolt I bought at a garage sale. I think I had a whole fistful of things like this that I purchased years ago from a garage sale for like 50 cents, $1, something like that. You go buy this piece off the shelf. It's definitely more than that. If you buy it from Woodmax, it would be more yet, plus shipping. So basically for nothing, because I already had this stuff. I've had this for years. It didn't cost me any more to purchase this or to make this. It took me half an hour to cut this out, round everything off, and drill the holes in it, and I'm back in business. Yeah.
Now let's talk about plastic grocery bags. I know some of you live in places where you're not a lot, they're illegal now. But I love being able to have plastic. Of course, now here they've started charging 5 cents a bag, but it's still worth it to us because they make great garbage bags.
Or you can bring your own bag back to
bags.
the store, but you got to pack your own groceries in it for health reasons.
It's worth it to pay 5 cents for a bag because it's cheaper than buying garbage bags. But anyway, other things you can do is, like, I have a video on making totes, crocheting, if you crochet at all. And I have a video showing how you make what they call plarn, which stands for plastic yarn. And you can make a tote that can be recycled for using for groceries, or using as a bath or beach bag. When we used to go camping a lot more, this was nice for that very thing. And like when, if it's someplace like when we'd go to Creation Fest or something and they had the showers, and I could put all my shower stuff in there. I don't have to worry about it getting wet. I don't have to, if you're taking it to the beach, I don't have to worry about it getting sand in it because it's going to get filtered out anyway. And so you can crochet your own bags and whatnot out of that. Obviously they make great packing material. And again, as I said, most often get used for garbage. Just for garbage. So I don't have to buy trash bags. So
I remember when the argument came out when they started coming out with plastic bags, that it was the reason
it was more environmentally friendly.
For the improvement of the environment.
Yep.
It was save the trees.
Yep. Yep. Now remember,
our oceans are full of it.
Right. So remember, we live in
going back the other way.
We live in a logging town. It's not so much a logging town as it was, obviously, but Yes, I remember it was in the 80s. They were pushing these plastic bags because they were better for the environment because you weren't killing so many trees. Anyway.
It's like playing tennis, you know. Hit the
Oh
ball
my
back and forth.
goodness sakes. It's so incredibly stupid. But anyway, okay, so the plastic, that's funny because I was thinking of that a little bit ago. Almost was going to say it, and I'm like, but I'll let you said it. Well, now this one would be a good one for Patrick to talk about because I did write it down a couple of these things that you use. One is like old fence boards, your trailer decking, or pallets for making things. So like I've said before, this, you'll see me standing over in that corner a lot, by the dehydrators when I'm shooting videos in here, the pre-recorded ones. Well, that countertop there, Patrick made that entire countertop. It's all one big solid piece out of the decking when he needed to redeck his equipment trailer. That's where that came from. And it's a beautiful countertop. He made the bathroom cabinet, right? Isn't that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's something else. There's a couple other things just you use just that decking for. Was it that little, my barter box out there?
No, but that was from Mill Ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I've got a couple of shelves around here you've made out of scrap lumber,
Yeah, some old
fence pieces.
Yeah.
And
Old weathered fence boards that, you'd typically throw in the garbage, or burn. Made rustic knick-knack shelves and different things like that out of it.
Or bed rails.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about bed rails recently, I think, in another live show, but so he said this was made out of bed rails. There's so many things you can do with old bed rails. So he made my dehydrator racks. And he's made, one of the things I didn't mention when we were talking about this last time was the, for your truck bed, the red truck, the red Toyota.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I made a little old lumber rack for my older Toyota and used it for years and worked good. Yeah, just whatever you need angle iron for. You can get bed rails. I was on Facebook Marketplace the other day and somebody said, giving away free bed rails. I can deliver. And I said, okay, yeah.
Another thing I've mentioned, and I don't remember what video, but was taking old jewelry and making decorative pieces. So, those of you who celebrate Christmas or, you might even be something where you can make your own ornaments for your tree. But I like to I have certain places where the sun comes in the window and I love the way the light hits certain things and just as something pretty. So especially this piece, I brought it in because this is a really important piece to me. This was my mother's and it was a pin and I wore it after she passed away. That was one of the things I picked out because it was like one of her favorite colors was blue, especially like a royal blue. But she liked the blend of these colors. And I really like hummingbirds. And I was wearing it, but then the pin clasp of it broke. So it kept coming off of my jacket and I didn't want to lose it. And I thought, well, how about put it where I can see it every day, all the time. And so I just took some wire and I have a collection of beads just for making earrings or whatever, just for fun. I was selling them for a while, but anyway, so I made this little dangly thing. It's not really a sun catcher, the beads are. And so I can see it every day. And it's just a nice decorative piece. And I've made other pieces using old earrings because I don't wear all that stuff anymore. Old costume jewelry and just making some pretty little dangles to hang here and there for decorative pieces. But yeah, you can just take old costume jewelry and make all kinds of stuff or just make all new jewelry out of it. If it's something you don't wear anymore, or even use them as like decor to put on gifts when you're wrapping stuff up, make a little thing there, just to make it look pretty. There's all kinds of ways you can use up something like that. Well, I think I covered all my points and Yeah, and even if you're watching this in replay, feel free to throw some more comments below the video once it's done of some thoughts and ideas of things you like to recycle and reuse, upcycle. It's a part of the self-sufficiency thing. It's part of being more frugal, making the most out of all the things that we have. And like the jar thing, there's some people that can't get good canning jars. So all they have are jars that are recycled from things they've purchased at the store. Yes, use them. As long as the lids are in good shape, you can do this. I mean, the bottles, all this stuff. I know. I think we can learn a lot by just realizing we don't have to run down the store and buy a package of paper towels. We've got a whole bunch of scraps or old socks or t-shirts that we can use instead.
Old t-shirts make great shop rags, and
yeah, he uses a lot of them in his shop too, for greasy stuff or whatever he needs them for. And
I'll even go as far as if I use paper towels for something, if they're clean enough, I won't throw them away. I'll just use them for like soaking up oil or whatever like that.
Yeah, making the most of all of that.
And I got a bag out there just for that. If I have an oil spill or something, I can use old shop towels for absorbing oil.
I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for coming. Take care, and God bless.